Hey guys, I just had an amazing conversation with Charlie McKenna. He has so much in common with me, I didn't even realize, from, some of his grandma's recipes to, having been inspired by his dad to get into barbecue. And now he has restaurants. He does products like sauces and rubs and even potato chips. It was just a real great conversation. I think if you're getting into the restaurant space, you can learn something and definitely learn more about Charlie and his story. But I just can't wait for you guys to listen to this episode with Charlie McKenna. I learned so much about him. He's such a great person. You guys need to check it out. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Duce Raymond podcast. Today we have a special guest, Charlie McKenna. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
We know each other. We're both in Chicago, both in the barbecue space, but we don't get a chance to sit down and talk all that often. So this is going to be really cool. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let's get started just to get a little background. So food was a big part of your upbringing, and I know your grandmother had something to do with that. Can you give us a little story about how you got started in food and why you were inspired to go down that road?
Yeah, when I was little, very little, growing up in South Carolina with my family, my grandmother, Lillie, who most of my products and companies named after, was the one that had me in the kitchen teaching me biscuits and gravy, country ham, pound cakes, all the kind of traditional Southern items that you think of when you're thinking of like a traditional Southern grandmother. She was the one that was all, a lot of our tables for holidays were always, around. She was the one kind of organizing that. And dictating who was doing what. And she had us, obviously, she was a very tough lady, but obviously a very talented one as well. And everybody worked in the kitchen, right? Everybody had a task. Like nobody just got to sit around. Like either you were shelling peas or, creaming corn, or you were making biscuits or helping, right? In that aspect, even as a little child, like you would get involved in the family day-to-day cooking techniques. So she really had me in the kitchen when I was little, kind of teaching me the family traditions. And then my mom, obviously, that's my mom's mom. So my mom is a great Southern cook as well. And then my dad is obviously a really good cook too. He got into cooking from his parents. His mom was 100% German, and they made a lot of their own sausages and all that sort of thing, and pickles. So we always made our own pickles, we made our own sausages. We made all our food from scratch, basically. All my family
where down
traditions.
south did you grow up?
So Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
So my dad was in the military, so I moved around a bunch, but I also spent a lot of time there. And then all my family's from there. So my culture and history is from South Carolina.
That's so cool. My grandmother, Omi, her name was Alice, but we all just called her Omi because she was German, and really similar, where all the holiday foods were her foods on the table. And the pound cake specifically sticks out to me. You said pound cake, and she made the best lemon pound cake, and it was so good. I just remember it, slicing into it. It was one of her favorite things, and my favorite things that she made.
Yeah, mine was grandmother's was a chocolate pound cake, and I always requested that one when I was coming over to her house. Like, hey, please make sure you have a chocolate pound cake ready.
Yes.
So
that's awesome.
And my dad's grandmother, her name, the German one, her name was also Alice, actually.
Oh, wow.
Which is a weird coincidence, but
yeah, it is. That's so cool. So then you actually went to a traditional college before you went to culinary school. Is that correct?
I did. Obviously I was always into cooking, but knew I had to get a 4-year degree. My dad, being a colonel in the military, was like adamant about a college degree. Right. Very strict growing up, upbringing. Dad, very involved in my life. We hunted a lot together. We fished together. He took me to all my soccer games. So very involved, but also very strict, very regimented type, lifestyle, with him being a colonel in the military. Knew I had to go to a 4-year college or he would have busted me up a little bit. But once I got to Florida State, I was trying to think about what I wanted to do. And my dad was already doing kind of catering barbecue since I was little in the military. He was stationed in Vandenberg Air Force Base. That's where I was born, actually.
Okay.
In California. So which is right in near Santa Maria, California, where Santa Maria barbecue came from. So he was already cooking Santa Maria barbecue when I was little. And that kind of transitioned to him doing more cooking, smoking turkeys and doing all the kind of outdoor grilling that you think like a dad or father typically takes on. And that atmosphere, really got into me. And then he was actually working for Williams Sonoma when I was first out in college because he had retired from the military. So he was doing a lot of cooking, and I was helping him out with some of that stuff. And then, I said at a point, I figured, oh man, I want to be a chef. I thought so. I was already at Florida State University, and I knew I couldn't drop out of there or he'd lose his mind to go chase, a culinary career.
Right.
Back then, we're talking 1994. It's my freshman year at Florida State. So, chefs weren't as Food Network was out there, Emeril Lagasse, and all the shows were kind of getting out there, but it wasn't like this career that most people thought of as a career that you can go be a chef. That was kind of like a trades, program, probably almost more to some of our parents, right?
Right. Oh, for sure, for our parents.
So I found out Florida State had a great hospitality restaurant hotel management program. So I got into that program and went through that side of the business and got my bachelor's in science of hotel restaurant management, hospitality.
Okay. And then you moved on. Then you really wanted to pursue the chef degree.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to be a chef. So I started working. Part of the degree at Florida State hospitality, you have to have so many hours worked in a hospitality environment. I can't remember the number. It was like 100 hours or something you had to work in a hospital. So it wasn't anything crazy. It was something you could do as a part-time job on top of your studies. But I was the breakfast cook at a hotel in Tallahassee. So I would get up at like 4 a.m. Sometimes I'd actually roll straight from the bar to
that's what made me laugh. I was like, I had that type of job before.
Right? Florida State's a party school. So on Sunday mornings, I would tell the servers like, hey, if you need me, I'm sitting in the cooler. Because that fan, the fan when you're hungover is just so awesome. And that cold air blowing in your face. Sometimes I would be hanging out in the cooler because I was still either drunk or basically really hungover. But I was a breakfast cook for a lot of my time at Florida State. I'd go cook breakfast, definitely on the weekends. And I cook a couple days during the week, and I go straight to class and then be done after that. But a couple hours in the morning. But so I decided from there I wanted to go to the Culinary Institute of America. So I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, and got my degree there. And then started working in great restaurants around the U.S. But
yeah, that's awesome. So then you really pursued more of the fine dining side before you got into barbecue really hardcore.
Yeah, barbecue was always in our culture. Being from South Carolina, I ate it every single week. And my dad was into Santa Maria barbecue more. We were always cooking ribs and those sort of things. Nothing like getting technical about it. But yeah, when I went to Culinary for America, I wanted to be, Charlie Trotter, those type of people, right? So I really focused on that side of the business for a long time. When I first moved to Chicago, I was working I moved to Chicago to work in fine dining restaurants. A restaurant called True, TRU. You may remember it, but some people may not remember.
Gail Gand and Rick Romano.
Yeah. So I moved there to work there. It was getting
Gail's
huge.
Sticky coffee pudding recipe is amazing.
Yeah, she has a lot of amazing pastry recipes. Obviously, she's very talented. But yeah, that kitchen was unbelievable. Plus, the people you got to work with in those kitchens was amazing. So, I worked in New York for a little while. I worked for Norman Van Aken in Miami, who's a huge, fine dining chef. So, I spent most of my first early part of my career all in like 2-3 star style Michelin restaurants, focused on, Tweezer food and stuff like that.
Right. So how did you and your dad step into the competition side of barbecue? What was that like?
Yeah. So it came about because my dad and I are very close. Like when I was growing up, we would do a lot of hunting together, bow hunting, dove hunting, pheasant hunting, went to Montana and did antelope hunting. So we were always spending a lot of time together. So after I was in Chicago, we didn't get to see each other as much, right? He lived down south. I lived up here. Obviously, as you grow older, you kind of separate from your parents a little bit. You start to get your own life, own job, all that stuff. So for a way for us to meet up and see each other more often than the typical just maybe Thanksgiving or Christmas, we started to see these barbecue competitions on TV and stuff. We're like, oh, well, why don't we try that? So there was a contest in Tryon, North Carolina we went to.
Was it KCBS or MBN?
I think it was a KCBS contest. I think at the time too, if I remember correctly, like I was already a chef, so we did terrible though. Like when you're a fine dining chef, right? You think you can cook every single thing under the sun.
Of course, there's nothing going to stop you.
Right? Yeah, right. Needless to say, and that goes to all fine dining chefs now. Like, try to come cook barbecue with me, and you'll see that it's not just throwing racks of ribs on a grill and waiting for heat, right?
Oh yeah, especially how competition now is. Like when you were doing the competition, and I started competing in like 2008 or something like that, it was
Yeah.
still like, I mean, still very exact science, but now I think it's even at a different level. And I don't necessarily
Yeah.
like the direction that it's in right now, but
I would agree.
regardless, I agree. You have to kind of forget some of the chefiness stuff when you're going to those competitions.
I mean, one of the things that we realized when we took like second to last or something like that on all the teams, it was pretty bad. And we were like, I was like, holy mackerel. And then, obviously when you're at competitions, you start to talk to people that are staying up and cooking and next to you and all that stuff. And one of the things I took out of that contest was, hey, the judges at these contests are they're regular Joes, right? From down the street, maybe, that took a judging class, and they're not looking for some type of, I don't know, let's use an example. Like, they're not looking for guava or any of this type of stuff that may add a great profile to pork or your ribs or something, but it's going to, for them, they're like, no, that's not barbecue. Or that's not the taste I was looking for. So then you don't get judged well. So
better off with Sweet Baby Ray's than something super fancy.
100%, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, Sweet Baby Ray's is a great sauce, great tasting sauce. And, obviously has great sugar content for the glazes and everything too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea was, okay, I got to bring it back to the basics. I got to learn the basics. I got to learn fire management. I got to learn what the meat is actually doing. Then my fine dining background took me into a direction that really led me into being successful in competition barbecue, because I dove into the science and the nuances of every flavor profile and how meats actually get cooked and when the fat breaks down, and really focused on that. And that's when we really started turning around and really, we started this journey in 2004, 2005. Yeah. My first Memphis May was 2005. So right before that. So yeah, we really, that's really what's propelled my career, is taking the learnings of how a fine dining chef gets taught and thought and how they think about food, and transferring that to my barbecue is kind of how it led me to be, I think, partially, successful.
Would you say that, when you won, I think, in 2006 or 7?
2007. Yeah.
2007, you won the pork category at Memphis in May. Yep. Was that something that really kind of triggered you to want to dive more into barbecue?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's when you win Memphis in May, it's gigantic. It's like winning the Super Bowl. I tell people, people are always like, oh, what's it like? I'm like, imagine how, a team wins when they win the Super Bowl, because that's basically what it is for barbecue, or one of the 3 or 4 contests that are considered the Super Bowl.
For sure.
So yeah, and then it creates that, it's that, that Tom Brady quote, I forget exactly what it is. Basically, what's your favorite Super Bowl? The next one, right? It's I forgot about 2007, a month after it happened, and then I'm chasing 2008, and then 9, and 10, whatever. So, and we've had great success in Memphis, obviously, and in competition barbecue. I mean, I've won it again in 2016. We've been in the top 10. This will be my 20th year at Memphis in May.
Holy cow.
Year.
I was going to ask if you're still doing it. That's amazing.
Yeah, so we are doing it this year again. So this is our 20th year. It's always my dad, me, and then some of my buddies that come down to help.
Yeah.
A couple of them that are continuously always there. Some of them that change out depending on the, what year it is and what they have going on with their own family and lives. But it's usually about 5 or 6, 7 guys there, all friends of ours. It's actually, I don't want to say it's a vacation for me, but it's one of my blends that I consider hey, this is kind of a vacation. I'm with my buddies. We're hanging out. It's a guy's trip, right?
Right.
But yeah, we've been in the top 10, 15 years out of that 20 or something like that.
Wow.
So
yeah, it's amazing. It really shows your commitment and the dedication to making it the best you can. And that's how I always thought about competition. It always just revved me up to get it the best I possibly can. And I think I heard you say something about how barbecue needs to be something where you take what you know and develop in how you want it to be. It doesn't have to always be a certain way, but if you can take it and kind of meld it to what makes you really excited about it, then you're going down the right path.
Yeah, I think one of a lot of people, normal people, I would call them, okay, not maybe barbecue enthusiasts, but they don't cook competitions. They do it at home. I think some of the things they forget is, barbecue is actually a cooking technique, right? The flavor profiles, to say that only sweet ribs is the only ribs that can be out there, I think that's just a misstep on where we can take barbecue and where we can take food. That's 100%. Limiting ourselves to be in this only category, right? And you kind of see this with restaurants in Texas and stuff now with, KG Barbecue, who's an Egyptian barbecue company, and then Leroy and Lewis, who's doing outside the box things.
Right.
I think when you cook good food is when you cook good food for your like passion, right? So, and if you're cooking with your passion, then your food's always going to be great, right? So if you try to do what someone else thinks is barbecue, not necessarily always works, but if you stick to what you're good at barbecue, then I think you could be successful.
Yeah, no, that sounds spot on to the way I think about it too. That's really good. So take me down that. You had some success in the competitions, and then how did you make that leap to say, okay, we're going to open a barbecue? Did the restaurant come first before the sauces and rubs? Or what was that progression?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sure. So how did you make that transition to just like barbecue was a hobby, cooking competition with your dad, to I'm going to make this into a business?
Yeah, so that's another funny life-changing story or new lane, new road you have to get on. So I was planning actually a higher-end Southern restaurant in Chicago.
Okay.
In 2008, and everyone knows what happened in 2008. Market crashes, the whole home thing fell out, and my investors in that project pulled out and said, "Hey, we're not doing it. We're in cold mode. We can't do this right now." Well, I had already left my job, and I had a 1-year-old daughter at the time, Hope.
Okay.
So I was racking my brain. Okay, how am I going to pull out of this tailspin going down? And after our 2007 win at Memphis, my dad was retiring from his second career, basically Williams-Sonoma. He also worked for Viking Range for a little bit.
Okay.
So there was a barbecue place in Destin, Florida, where my grandfather, my dad's dad, was my whole life. So I went to Destin since I was 5 years old. There was a barbecue place up for sale there, right near where my grandfather lived and where my dad was moving to. So we bought that barbecue place and we flipped it to all Lillie's Q barbecue sauces and rubs. And I created all the sauces and rubs for the competition team originally.
Sure.
Around. So that was open in 2008 already. Well, when this thing fell through, I said to myself, man, why don't I bring barbecue to Chicago? I mean, Smoke was here, which is very popular. That had opened like 2006 or something like that.
Yep.
But obviously he was kind of leaning into more of the Texas style brisket. I'm more of a Carolina style pork guy. I'm Memphis. I went pork shoulder. There's no even beef category in Memphis, but they're auxiliary one. But so my mindset was, why don't I bring a barbecue restaurant to Chicago, but dress it up a little bit, right? Like have a full bar, have servers, have some other dishes on the menu. So we had like smoked fried chicken, we had smoked chicken and dumplings, and we had a bunch of other stuff, right? Kind of make it a full service restaurant that would leaned in 90% to barbecue and brought the barbecue to Chicago. So I went to a couple buddies of mine that had, they had their own companies or had their own jobs, and then we were raising money, and I raised some money from 4 friends of mine.
Wow.
And we, got Lillie's Q off the ground in 2010. We opened it actually July 29th of 2010. So Lillie's Q will be 15 years this year. So we got some big anniversaries this year with Memphis and Lillie's Q.
That's amazing. That's so good. I mean, everybody knows, well, at least I feel like everybody knows how hard the restaurant business is. Our restaurant is 20 years this year, and it's a challenge, and there's ups and downs, especially in the beginning. They're just trying to figure out your systems, and every restaurant is kind of nuanced and different, and congrats, man. 15 years is awesome.
Yeah, I say it's like 100 years in regular business. It's like, as you know, restaurants are so extremely hard on such razor thin margins. And I think the normal layman doesn't understand the concept of how restaurants are on razor thin margins.
Yeah.
And it's tough to, 75% of them close within the first year. So, I mean, that's a huge number, right? So to make it 15, I've been blessed. I've had a lot of great people that worked for me and worked with me. Obviously, the guys that I still have with me, I have 3 or 4 guys that have been with me that whole time. So one of my guys has been with me when my fine dining base, like 20 years.
That's key.
Couple other guys have been with me like 10, 15, 7. So, as you know, it takes a team to do all this stuff, whether it's Win Memphis or May, whether it's open restaurants and keep them up and running. I've been blessed with a lot of good staff and, people that believed in my vision of where we were taking this thing. So I can't think of, those people enough.
When we asked about the best barbecue on Facebook, Adam, Ari, and Oren decided to turn our thread into their own personal chat room. Adam even offered to work for free food. You know what, dude? That's my job. But great work on the barbecue list. It led us to Lillie's queue. Oh, I'll ask him if they're hiring. Adam wants a job. All right, Charlie, why don't you give us a little bit of the history about what you guys do here with the queue?
I'm from South Carolina originally, so we just bring authentic Carolina-style barbecue. We've competed in the World Championships of Barbecue and won twice.
Why aren't you wearing the medal around your neck?
They're a little big.
You have some severe neck muscles if you put that around your neck.
Right, head down, basically.
Everyone has their favorite style. I wondered if you wanted to talk crap to some of the other favorites for barbecue and tell them why your Chicago's best.
Now, our style's the best because we're from the South. That's where barbecue started, in my opinion.
And you also don't screw with the man who wears this as a medallion.
We actually won it for what we're going to cook today, the pulled pork sandwich.
I like to make award-winning dishes. I think I can get behind the pulled pork today. Should we go cook?
Yeah, let's go do it.
All right. Traditional style, the best style.
So then you also have Roux, which is like a kind of what you originally set out to open, it sounds like. So when did that open?
So that opened in 2022. January 2022.
Right after kind of COVID opened up and everything.
COVID was coming out. So that's kind of a collab between, so Lillie's Q, we used to be on North Avenue in Bucktown, and at a time,
I remember that location. We went there. I think you came down when Dave and I went and had lunch there, and I remember you coming down, and it was awesome. You know, you gave us a tour of the kitchen and everything. It was really cool. Yeah,
so that location was the original one, the full service restaurant, basically. But right before COVID, my lease was up, and I was negotiating with a landlord. And Bucktown, if anyone doesn't know it in Chicago, had started as a artist and like a hipster neighborhood, and it slowly got gentrified, and you know, prices went up. My landlord thought now rents should be triple what they were for me when I went in 2010. I said, I can't do it, so I'm moving out. I actually found a brewery called District Brew Yards where our Lillie's Q is now. I moved into that location on Ashland and Hubbard, basically, Ashland and Grant in Chicago. Back in April of 2020, we started doing like takeout out of there because no restaurants were open in Chicago in April anyway, except for to-go food. So we moved Lillie's Q there. So Roux is a collaboration between ownership of District Brew Yards and myself. Okay. So they owned a bowling alley down in Hyde Park where Roux is. If anyone doesn't know, in Chicago, that's where Obama's from. That's where Obama's library is going to be built. That's where University of Chicago is. Big African-American population and also Jewish population in Hyde Park, which is, they're very supportive of the restaurant, which is awesome.
Sweet.
And so I'm kind of the consulting chef, and these guys kind of run the day-to-day, front of house and everything. So it's it's a great partnership, right? It's like, hey, I get to do what I'm really good at, which is create menus, great food, train kitchen staff, make sure food quality is coming out consistently the same all the time. And these guys kind of handle, paying the bills and like making sure, lights are on and stuff like that. So it also allows me to still focus on Lillie's Q restaurants and products. But yeah, it's a Southern breakfast spot. It's kind of twisted off, French and New Orleans style cuisine with Southern food mixed in. So we have things like biscuits and gravy. We have country ham. We have chicken fried steak. We have beignets. We have a cinnamon roll. So we have I love one of my favorite restaurants, and people are probably going to be like, what is Waffle House? I love Waffle House for breakfast. Right? Yeah. The hash browns that you can get all the toppings on, smothered, scattered, chunked, and topped. I love those things. Obviously going to Florida State, that was like our 2 a.m. restaurant.
Right.
So I took a version of that and I did it with grits. So I have like my stone ground grits on the menu that you can add all these toppings to, whether it be mushrooms or gravy or, ham or any of those type of things. Bacon, we can add all that sort of stuff to it. So Roux was kind of my ode to like a beautiful, like Southern New Orleans style breakfast spot. So it's more of a diner. It's open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner only Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we do dinner, but our dinner menu is limited to like chicken fried steak, shrimp and grits, a patty melt.
Keep it simple. That sounds perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that smaller menus, more exacting on every dish, right? So instead of trying to have a huge menu with a couple of good items, I try to have a lot of good items on a smaller menu. So I like to really focus on every single aspect of every dish. So
that sounds like great advice to someone that wants to get into the restaurant business.
You cannot be everything for everyone. The Cheesecake Factories of the world They don't exist in smaller family-run businesses, right? For the most part. I mean, there's still some old-timers that are been open 20, 30, 40 years and have huge menus. But in my mindset, if you go in focused, go in reeled in, and focus on doing 10 dishes great instead of 20 dishes average.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And in the early days of our restaurant, we tried to run all these different specials and tried to get fancy with different things. And it's like, people are coming to Sweet Baby Ray's for barbecue. They're not coming there to get, a meatloaf and mashed potatoes. They just want to have pulled pork and ribs because that's why they're coming to your restaurant, to get what you specialize in. I mean, I
think it's sometimes when you do some of those things too, it takes your focus on the core. It takes the focus off what the core of the restaurant is. And those products tend to suffer a little bit because you only have so much time, right? All the cooks only have so much time. The chefs only have so much time. So if you're taking time away to focus on something that's not as ideal or what the customer is looking for, then you're losing an opportunity to really wow them with what you do well, which is at Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue, Lillie's Cube barbecue. Roux is Southern breakfast. So
no, that's great. So one thing that stuck out to me when I was at Lillie's was that you had tri-tip on the menu, and that's before you really saw it anywhere up here. So that now that having this conversation comes from your dad being down in California.
Yep. So my dad was stationed in California back in 1976 when I was born.
Wow.
And he was into cooking. He met a guy that was doing Santa Maria style catering, and he went and helped him. So he would help him on weekends and doing all these big catering gigs out in California. My dad got transferred to a different base. He went to the gentleman and said, "Hey, I'd love to learn about the rub and learn about this." So the guy taught him that stuff, and then my dad took it with him. And then when I was younger, we were doing catering gigs for the Air Force base that we were on, or wherever my dad was stationed. We were doing big catering events for people and houses. And we did one for a base for 700 people, where I was the one I had my little pigtail, that little, you can buy, it's like a rod with a little curl on it. And I would be flipping all the tri-tips on the grill, like on a milk crate. So I would move the milk crate down and flip them. And then I would tell my dad when I thought they were getting close to be finished, because I could tell by looking at them. And he was teaching me how to feel the meat and touch it and say, "Oh, okay, it's getting close done." And then I would tell him, "Hey, I think these are done over here." And if he would feel them, be like, "Oh, 2 more minutes, 5 minutes, whatever." Or he would pull them and say, "Okay." And then he'd slice them. And we did an event for 700 people when I was 11 years old or something, like 9 to 11 years old or something like that. So that's how I picked up tri-tip, basically.
Yeah, and you decided not to put brisket on that menu, correct? And use the tri-tip as the beef option. And do you still have no brisket, or is there brisket? No,
we had. I think the population now requires brisket to be on the menu. I think
it's a requirement at a barbecue restaurant.
Texas barbecue is just so hot right now and so big that So we first started doing brisket. Well, tri-tip, I'll go into that story first. Tri-tip, obviously, when I opened Lillie's Q in Chicago, I was a Carolina boy that wanted to do Carolina barbecue. So it was mostly focused on pork and the shoulder and that type and ribs. And then I did tri-tip because that was the beef option I was going to give. I didn't want to do brisket. I'd never even really cooked a real brisket at that point in my life. And, I was already opening Lillie's Q barbecue restaurant. So I went with tri-tip. Also, smoke was around, right? You guys were around. Brisket was out there. So I'm like, let me do something different that someone hasn't done. So tri-tip for me is more like a smoked steak, right? It's a high, medium rare to low, medium type temperature you're trying to hit. It's a faster cook. It's 45 minutes to an hour and 15, depending on what temperature you're smoking it at. It was something that Chicago hadn't seen. We did then start doing brisket on a special, like a Tuesday night special. So I tried to drive some traffic on brisket for Tuesday nights, and then it started to topple and take off. Then I brought it on the menu full time once we started to see people that were craving it more time. Yeah. And I continually got better and better at it, right? Like if you went from the first brisket I had on the menu at Lillie's Q to the brisket you taste at Lillie's Q now, I've changed so many things by learning and progressing and seeing things that were just like my pork shoulder at Memphis, right? Like I continue to try to progress this thing and all my barbecue, even to this day, I am always looking for a better way. So if I cook with you guys at Sweet Baby Ray's, or I cook with people in Texas, or I go to an event in Australia, or I teach, I think one thing that maybe some people may forget, but I don't, is like, you never stop learning. So you could always pick up some kind of tip or tool from anyone you cook with. Yep. So my eyes are always open and my ears are always listening, because they may say something that maybe it's not that exact thing that you're like, if they say, oh, I cook it to this temperature, maybe that's not what you take out of it, but it sparks another idea that then may make your barbecue better. So I'm always listening to all the tidbits of everyone talking, and when they're talking barbecue, because I'll pull something out of something like that, and then it'll turn into this, and then it may turn into something else. And it started from like something I heard from somebody, and then I start playing with it. And then before you know it, eventually I'm doing it in my own way to make my product better. And I try to continually do that for the rest of time. Like, do I think the brisket is perfect at Lillie's Q every day? No. So how do we continually to get perfect brisket every single day, or tri-tip or ribs or pork shoulder? How do we continue to drive that? And I think that's one of the reasons Lillie's Q has staying power, is because we never stop trying to do better.
Right.
I think the minute you stop trying to do better, it's like a shark. When a shark stops swimming, it dies.
Yeah. No, I think that's so good, and something that I think about all the time. And I'm embarrassed to think about our first brisket days back at, when we first opened it. We were like pre-slicing some of the brisket and holding it in a pan, and just trying to figure it out. And it's so much different today than it is now. And we had, go ahead.
The other thing that's crazy is, like, people have to understand is, like, restaurant cookery is different than home cookery. It's different than competition cookery, right? 100%. So restaurants, we have to hold this meat. Because it takes so long to cook, you have to hold this meat for a long time. So you may try slicing and holding in liquid, or doing this or doing that. So you're always trying to create the best product for the guest as much as possible. And it changes based off what you learn and what tools come out. And if you take those things as a learning experience, and you can always, progress and get better. Because if you would take my first brisket and put it against the brisket now, people would be like, that's the same guy cooking that stuff? It's like, it takes a lot of. And I would say, I'm not a type of person, like, I don't go chasing other people's information out there, like, just like bugging them, right? And before YouTube and Instagram, it was like, learn on your own, or hopefully some dude would tell you something, because before those things, nobody said jack shit about any of the stuff. It was like guarded secrets, some of the stuff.
Oh, 100%.
Part of the cook, right?
You just did a video about the money muscle. I couldn't figure out what the money muscle was to save my life. Like, when I first started barbecue, I had no idea. Right? I'm like, what are these guys talking about? And some guys would lie to you straight up, and like, oh, you got to get this piece in here. And now with the internet, everything, that's like one of the first videos I did was like showing exactly where the money muscle was, because I know that I wanted to know so bad when I was first getting started in competition. But
right. It's like,
there's so much
now
information.
Everything seems to be out there. It's like all the tricks and trade are out there. I'm like, all right, people, pump the brakes a little bit. We can't have everybody knowing this stuff, because we got to sell it still.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing what the internet has done to, I'm sure, we're focused on the barbecue world a little bit more, but for everything, there's so much information out there.
I mean, I know so many people that have done things, whether they've been, fixing something in their house, fixing their car, doing anything, where they're like, oh, I watched a couple YouTube videos.
Yeah. Change the faucet on my sink. I would have never been able to do that.
Or you probably wouldn't even have tried either. You would have been like, nah, I'll just call a plumber. Now the first instinct is, well, let's watch it on YouTube and see if we can pull it, or Instagram, and see if we can do it ourselves. And then I can do this. And then you do it. But before, it was like, change a sink? You're right. I would never touch anything construction-wise. I'm like, nah, I can't. Some pictures I hang on the wall fall down after 2 days. So I'm like, all right, I got to YouTube this and figure this out.
What kind of smokers and holding units do you use at the restaurant?
Yeah, so I always use all real wood fire smoking. So it ranges from, I've used everything. I use a lot of mill scale equipment. Obviously, they're great guys. So it doesn't matter to me. The cooking apparatus, and it changes. Now, obviously, for me, there's levels, right? You can have, you got pellet smokers. I think you got good flavor. Or say you have good flavor, not enough smoke flavor probably on it, but its ease of use is a little bit easier. You got charcoal ones that are, more wood flavor, a little bit harder to use. And then you got like real wood cookers, which obviously take more technicality, a person that knows how to load fires, read fires, understand how the fire is working and what needs to happen to keep the heat, a lot more harder to use. So all of them have their purpose, and all of them can be used. I typically like for me, because I'm a professional, I want to do the best of the best. I always try to stay all real wood load cookers. And that can mean you could be cooking on an old hickory, you could be cooking on an M&M, you could be cooking on a propane tank, any of those things. I tend to lean towards mill scales equipment, like 1,000-gallon tanks and stuff. At the restaurant, I have more of a M&M where you load the chamber.
Is it
right?
like
More
this?
of a log cooker.
Yeah,
Like a J&R manufacturing like smoker.
That's similar to the Southern Pride, except it doesn't have the gas assist part of it. It's like a big square box, right?
Big square refrigerator type thing. Where it still takes whole logs, but it like has some fans that help pull it into the chamber.
Yeah.
Right. A little bit easier to use than just like 1,000-gallon where someone's just like loading fires and hoping the draw is pulling it. And then holding chambers, I'm 100% CVAP, only CVAP.
Okay.
In my personal research and things, the CVAC's technology of understanding moisture content that's in the product and then filling that holding chamber with moisture is so much better than like anything else I've ever used. So CVAPs, those are my favorite. Those are the ones I've seen technology work the best with. Obviously with barbecue, the first actually holding cabinet I ever had, and I didn't know there was equipment out there that could do this, but I bought an old bread proofer because I knew bread proofers had moisture in them and they had heat. And I knew I needed heat and moisture to hold the barbecue from like my technical fine dining days on how to hold meat. Yeah. So I bought an old bread proofer to start. Then someone showed me a CVAP and I was like, those are the genius things that I've ever seen. Yeah. And then, so I started using those.
Do those actually hook up to a water connection so they don't run out of moisture?
Yeah. So there's two ways you can hook it up. There's a water pan in the bottom, a big one, that you can fill by hand and has a drain on it. Okay. It also has a water connection. So if you want to build a water line into it to keep it constantly filled, you can do that.
That makes a lot of sense because I've had the ones with water pans and it seems like they're always empty.
You obviously got to keep water in those things. Otherwise it's pointless. It's like having a smoker that you're not putting wood in. It doesn't work, right? It's like,
so I have to remind my guys that in the kitchen.
Oh yeah, it's a constant battle, right? Staying on top of people to make sure they're doing the right things.
So let's talk about the product side a little bit. And I don't know when you got started, but it seemed in the last 3-4 years you're really hitting that side of the business hot and heavy. So how did that get started, and where's your focus at with it now?
So I started making all the sauces and rubs for the competition circuit, and I had regional sauces based off where we were cooking because the judges were from that area or that region. So typically, most people's favorite barbecue sauce is the one they grew up eating.
100%.
So if you grew up eating Sweet Baby Ray's, that I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the first top 2 answer they say. Oh, I love Sweet Baby Ray's and I love whatever else. So that's why I tried to create these regional sauces. Well, when we opened the restaurant, I wanted to have these different sauces for people to try as like a customer experience, right? And we had them on the table in the bottles with little liquor pour spouts in them they could serve. And I have 2 Memphis style sauces, one hotter than the other. I have a Western North Carolina, which is tomato vinegar, Eastern North Carolina vinegar and spice, mustard and vinegar from my home state, South Carolina, and then obviously mayo and vinegar, which is the Alabama version. Yep. Big Bob Gibson style. So I started bottling those sauces because I thought people would come to Lillie's Q and be like, oh, I love that sauce. Do you sell it? Can I take a bottle home? So we started bottling out of the restaurant. Then about 8 months to a year into Lillie's Q, my meat provider, who was selling me a lot of small meats from small farms around Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan, the 5 states that are basically closest to Chicago. He came to me and he said, well, he bought this CPG or consumer packaged good distributing company. And he's like, high-end products. And he was distributing these products to high-end butcher shops. If you go to a tourist town and you walk in some of those tourist stores and you see the like pretty food and pretty bottles on the shelves, he was that guy, right? So he said, hey, I want to carry your sauce. So we sat down in my bar, worked out a handshake deal of I'd sell him at a wholesale price to him so he could make some money. I'll make some money. So he started taking to the 5 states, and then he came to me and said, hey, I'm going to this food show called Fancy Food, which is one of the biggest trade food shows in the world. He's like, why don't you come stand in my booth? You'll have a little table. You can present the sauces, and you can talk about your own products, and there'll be buyers there and distributors there. At first, I'm like, I don't want to fucking do that. Like, I'm a chef. I want to own a restaurant, right? I was never into this CPG thing. I mean, for a long time, actually. Yeah. But I knew that it added revenue to the restaurant. Right. And I knew restaurants grow on very thin margins, and CPG is better margins. They're not huge, but they're better than restaurants are. So I went to the show, and then we started getting a little click off. Like, Crate and Barrel wanted the sauce. right? So that was huge. So we got Crate and Barrel one summer. We had 2 sauces that were in Crate and Barrel. Oprah magazine picked up the sauce, and like we started getting a lot of huge wins. And I put it in some beautiful packaging, right? That Boston Round with the beautiful label on it, real clean. Kind of my fine dining days came out because I was like, I want this to be sexy and clean.
Not like the typical barbecue sauce you see.
Yeah, in a different bottle, completely different bottle than everyone was using. Kind of that old apothecary look. I had the label that looked kind of apothecarian on it. And it just started toppling on itself. And then 2014, one of my buddies that invested in the restaurant, he worked for Univision, a TV company. And he was one of their top sales guys for like their World Cup commercials and stuff.
Okay.
So he came to me, and he'd been working for them, I think 10 years at the time. He's like, hey, I'm kind of bored with this job. It's nothing that I'm like really passionate about. I think this barbecue sauce thing has legs, and I want to come try and sell it. And we're like, okay. So he went to Univision to quit, and they said, whoa, you can't quit. We need you. So they let him work half a week at a Univision, and he worked half a week for Lillie's Cube.
Nice.
This is in 2014. So the restaurant's been open 4 years. And in that time, we had gotten like Mariano's, which is a local Chicago store.
Yep.
We'd gotten Jewel, which is a local Chicago store. Just mainly from people coming to us and coming to the distributor now is Fortune Fishing Gourmet. That's who it was. Who came to me. So I said, okay. So we had gotten some wins. We were doing, a couple $100,000 in business and sauce sales, added to the restaurant revenue. It was great. He came on board in 2014, worked part-time 2014. By 2015, he had gone out and gotten so many sales that it was like, okay, he had to quit Univision, and he focused on sales and accounting, and I focused on marketing and operations of the products company. And that 2014, 2015 is when we really said, okay, we're going to try to make something out of this products company. We separated the business from the restaurant, knowing that if for someday we sell, the same person won't want to buy the sauce that wants to buy the restaurant. So those aren't the same buyers of companies. Right.
Makes sense.
So we separated that, and we rolled it out. And then now, we're in, probably, I think we're in somewhere in the 15 to 18,000 grocery stores in 20 something different countries now.
Who's your distributor now?
So we have a ton of distributors, like Unify, KE distributes for us. They're big time distributors to the Whole Foods and those people of the world. Obviously the middleman that gets in the way, but they're a necessary evil. Honestly, we still have Fortune Fishing Gourmet, who distributes our products to, a lot of the 5 states around us. We have a couple others from around the country. I mean, distributors, there's tons of them, right? Because we're selling our product to whoever can get it into the right stores.
Right.
But we have our own sales team. We have our own marketing team. We have our own finance team. So, we just kind of grew that company slowly. And, we invested every dollar that we've taken out of it. Every dollar we've made in it has gone back into it. As you know, it takes a lot of money to grow a consumer packaged good company.
Yeah.
In grocery, there's a lot of, deals like slotting fees and all sorts of fees you have to pay to get into these grocery stores, because all these companies are buying for the shelves. I mean, the stores can't be 6 miles long. They're still, a grocery store. So there's only so much shelf space. So yeah, we've kind of grown it over the last 10 years, pretty aggressively. And we reached a point where we're in a lot of stores, and, we're continuing to push the upper echelon. We just changed our bottle to a new, same shape and everything, but we went to a squeeze bottle that we designed ourselves with a plastic manufacturing. I mean, obviously you need a certain bottle amount to do that. I think we're selling around 3 million bottles of sauce now a year.
Wow.
I mean, nothing like Sweet Baby Ray's, obviously.
Well,
that sauce is the juggernaut
is like
of
Sweet
all.
Baby Ray's, but that's amazing though. That's a really fast progression from where you started, and that's very, very respectful. I'm trying to start to do the same thing with Duce's Wild, and I'm learning that it is not, every business is hard, right? Restaurant business is hard. If you're in, technology, I'm sure that's hard too. But barbecue sauce is not easy either.
Oh my God, barbecue sauce. I mean, if you're talking about the CPG or consumer packaged good or grocery stores type, hardware stores, wherever you're selling your products at, if your barbecue sauce category is the hardest category or one of the top 3 in the grocery store, because everyone has a mom and pop's, sauce they're trying to sell.
So much competition out there.
So much competition. It's like restaurants. There's so much competition and limited buyers, and you have to go chase it down and have good products and have good branding. And there's, in every single business you get into. And I tell people all the time, it's like a lot of people are always like, man, it must be great to be you. You got restaurants and products and you're all over the world. You're flying around. Everyone sees me like cooking in Australia, New Zealand and stuff. It's like, yeah, did you see all the hours that I worked behind the scenes to do that stuff? Right.
Yeah.
It like, as you know, with the two businesses that we're both similar in, it's like, it is a 24/7 every single day of the week, every single year.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you just take the time from Lillie's Q opening in Chicago, that's 2010. So for 15 years, I worked every single day.
Yeah.
Now, do I work every single day all day? No, but even on Sundays, I'm doing something
There's
for work.
Phone calls, there's
emails, or setting up your schedule for the next week, or booking plane tickets, or doing any of that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So it's the hustle that I think people miss, right, when they see a lot of success. But if you put your nose to the grindstone and you say you're going to work hard, I think there is an opportunity for you to create a good business for yourself in any business, in my opinion, if you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah. If you're willing to put in the work, and you can create a good team around you too, because you can't do it by yourself. And that's really what I've leaned into the last 3 or 4 years, especially since COVID, getting, the right managers in the catering business so I can focus on Duce's Wild, because you can't just, if I'm trying to run the catering business, that's, a $9 million business. I can't do that and try to start another business, so it's like, it's too much,
like if I didn't have those guys that worked for me at the restaurants for so long and know how to do exactly what I want them to put out and what they want to put out, because it's a part of their name now too. Like when you say you work at Lillie's Q, I hope you have some pride in that and you want to do it. So like, if I didn't have those guys, it would have never allowed me to step out and go focus on the products and go do cooking events and trade shows and talks and try to get my product out there, or go to even buyers and have meetings with them about, hey, this is my product. And so like, if you don't have a good team, or you can't cultivate a good team, you need someone on your team that can do that. So that allows you to step outside and go do other things. I tell people, a lot of barbecue guys come to me all the time because they're like, hey, how did you go from restaurants to get the products to be everywhere?
Yeah.
And I said, one, you got to have a good team. You got to trust the people that are in the restaurant now to do what you want them to do, so that you can step out and go look at this and focus on this for a little bit. And then when you get to something else, you'll need a good team that's on that team to go focus on another project you want to do. So without great staff and being able to train them and, keep them motivated, nobody's going to get anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's so true. There's so many, each business has its own intricacies, and you have to have the right people in the right place to be able to handle that. If you want to expand, if you're just happy doing what you're doing, then, you can be in that day-to-day business cycle. But if you're trying to do more, then you have to get people that you can trust 100%.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm curious about the potato chips too, because that seems like a totally different, thing that's away from sauces and rubs. And it's just like the process of getting there seems like you have to work with a lot of different people to get that product done.
Yeah, potato chips was and potato chips obviously is, it's an interesting category. Everything that we have in our lineup started at the restaurants. So some people may remember, some people that aren't from Chicago or weren't in Chicago at the time may not remember, but after Lillie's Q opened in 2013, a food hall downtown called the French Market asked me to put a Lillie's Q down in the French Market. So it's where the Ogilvy train station is, where a lot of people come into work. The lunches are busy because it's near the Loop. So in 2013, I put that in there, but I was going into like a little 10 by 10 stand basically. And I had no hood in my area. So typically at Lillie's Q, we did French fries as one of the sides. So we wanted to kind of keep that same concept down there. So we decided to do like kettle cooked potato chips that we would cook at the restaurant, and then we would toss them in our own seasonings blend. So like we created pimento cheese, like all Southern flavors, pimento cheese, hot pepper vinegar, buttermilk and sweet onion, kind of playing off original chip flavors. Like our buttermilk and sweet onion is like sour cream and onion chip, right?
Yeah.
Similar version, but we have the Southern aspect of it's buttermilk instead of, sour cream.
Yeah.
So we were doing that down there and tossing them in our own powders. Well, it became so busy that we couldn't keep up. So I started looking for a co-manufacturer to make these chips. Right?
I see.
That's how it turned into, okay. And then I actually, Stephanie Isaac from Girl and the Goat,
okay,
she had a connection to a kettle chip manufacturer. I forget how she did, but I was like, where are you getting these made? It was actually in North Dakota at the time, where a lot of potatoes are grown.
Oh, makes sense.
So I reached out to them, and then we started making our flavors of chips in bags to sell at the French market mainly. And then we brought them into our product line. And then now you'll see them on, they used to be on United Airlines. Pretty soon you'll start to see them on Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines has picked them up. I don't know exactly when they're going on board, but it's soon. So yeah, we've been on airlines. We've been on United. We've been on American. We'll be on Delta now. They're sold at a lot of butcher shops. They're sold at like some small sandwich shops. And it's not like, it's obviously not as big as the sauce. The sauce and the rubs and seasonings are much bigger than the potato chip business, but it's a fun, thing that came out of the restaurant. And it kind of goes back to our total ethos of, hey, we make things and we make them Southern and we make them great. And we try to make the best chip we possibly can.
There's a guy, I don't know if you remember him or not, but his name was Heath Hall, and he was on Shark Tank, and he had pork barrel barbecue. And so he started doing barbecue flavor popcorn in different flavors, but he pointed out to me at the time, and this may be 15 years ago, I don't know, but he said that, if you think about it, if you buy a bottle of sauce for $5 or $6 or whatever it is, that could sit in someone's refrigerator for 6 months. But a bag of chips, if they buy, it's gone like that day. So I was like,
correct.
When I saw you had those chips, I'm like, he's thinking the same thing. That's awesome.
They are a much higher turning item than a barbecue sauce. That's for sure. So if you can make some headway into that type of category, it's obviously a lot more turns, which hopefully means a decent more revenue.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, Charlie, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. This has been an awesome conversation, and I've definitely learned some stuff. I hope people listening know more about you and more about your products, man. This is really cool. I can't wait I have to make it. There's so many guys I know that are going to be down in Memphis in May this year. I have to try to make a trip down there and come see you guys.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, thanks for having me. It was great to be on. Obviously, I love what you guys do out there. And I appreciate it. And yeah, you definitely should come down to Memphis, man. It's like, obviously there's a lot of barbecue people around.
Yeah.
You'll know 100 freaking people there.
Yeah. It'll just be a lot of fun. I went down to the Jack Daniels competition last year for the first time and actually cooked with one of the teams down there. And, it was a lot of fun. That's what I brought up. It was funny because you brought up True and Gail, and I actually used her. I talked to her about it beforehand, but I used her sticky toffee pudding and got a perfect score at the Jack Daniels in the dessert category. Yeah.
Hey, take it from the best, right? Hey, if you can,
for sure.
Especially in desserts. I'm not a big like baker or pastry person. My daughter Hope likes to do that a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I like the more. Hey, I get to fiddle with it instead. Oh, if you fiddle with it too much, the science just ruined it and it won't rise or won't do this or won't do that. So I leave that to the experts like Gail.
How old is Hope? Is she getting involved in the business?
I don't think she's going to be involved in the business. I'm kind of glad about that. Obviously, as you know how hard this business is.
Yeah.
I mean, she may pick something else, but now she's, when Lily's open, she was 4 years old and now she's 18 and at the University of Colorado.
Nice. Yeah, I have four daughters, and they're a little bit younger than that, but did I just say I had 4 daughters? I have 3 daughters and a wife.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like 4 when you write those checks.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my goodness. Well, Charlie, again, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.